Most husbands only get stabbed in the back once. I think mine was a group effort with multiple rounds of ammunition. My name is Colby Varron, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had the perfect life. Perfect wife, perfect daughter, perfect little IT repair shop in the heart of Millbrook, one of those mid-sized Midwestern cities where everyone knows everyone's business, except apparently mine. Seren, my wife of 16 years, works in HR at the regional medical center. She's the type who posts inspirational quotes on social media and organizes charity drives for stray animals. Our daughter Fiona is 15, sharp as a tack, and inherited my sarcastic sense of humor, along with her mother's striking green eyes. On paper, we looked like the American dream. In reality, I was living in a carefully constructed nightmare, and I didn't even know it yet. It started with small things. Seren began taking mental health yoga weekends every month, always with her best friends Mara and Anya. She'd come home refreshed, glowing even, talking about meditation and finding her inner peace. I supported it completely. After all, who doesn't need some self-care? Then came the late-night texting. She'd sit on the couch next to me, phone tilted away, fingers flying across the screen with the intensity of someone conducting a symphony. When I'd glance over, she'd casually flip the phone face down. "Work stuff," she'd say with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You know how crazy things get in HR?" The lingerie receipts were what really got my attention. Not because I'm opposed to my wife buying nice things for herself, but because I never saw any of it. Victoria's Secret charges for items that apparently vanished into thin air. When I mentioned it during one of our Saturday morning coffee talks, she brushed it off. "Oh, that old stuff? It didn't fit right. I returned most of it." Except the receipts showed no returns. I know because I handle all our finances, and I'm meticulous about tracking expenses. It's the accountant in me. Every penny has its place. My daughter Fiona started giving me these looks. You know the kind, the expression teenagers get when they know something the adults haven't figured out yet. We were sitting in my shop one afternoon while I rebuilt a customer's laptop, and she was doing homework at the counter. "Dad," she said, without looking up from her chemistry textbook, "do you ever think Mom's yoga friends are kind of weird?" I paused, screwdriver halfway to the laptop's back panel. "Weird how?" "I don't know, just when they pick her up, they're always giggling like they're planning something, and Anya keeps talking about how Mom deserves to live a little and explore her options." The way she said it, with air quotes and a perfectly mimicked impression of Anya's nasal voice, made me laugh despite the uncomfortable feeling growing in my stomach. "Maybe they're planning a surprise party," I suggested. Fiona gave me a look that could have melted steel. "Dad, you're really smart about computers and stuff, but sometimes you're incredibly dense about people," out of the mouths of babes. That evening, I decided to pay closer attention. Seren was in the kitchen making dinner, humming while she chopped vegetables for a salad. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and she practically lunged for it. "Hey, babe," I called from the living room. "Can you grab me a beer while you're in there?" "Sure thing," she replied, but her voice was distracted. I could hear her typing rapidly. When she brought me the beer, I noticed she'd left her phone in the kitchen. This was unusual. Seren was typically attached to that device like it was a life support system. "Thanks," I said, accepting the cold bottle. "Everything okay? You seem a little scattered lately." Her smile was bright, practiced. "Just tired. Work's been crazy with the new compliance regulations. You know how it is." I nodded and took a sip of my beer, but something felt off. Seren had been in HR for 8 years. She handled compliance issues in her sleep. This wasn't work stress. This was something else entirely. Later that night, after Seren had gone to bed, I found myself staring at the ceiling and thinking about all the little changes I'd been noticing. The new perfume she'd started wearing, the way she'd started going to the gym at odd hours. How she'd become suddenly interested in trying new restaurants on the other side of town, places where we were unlikely to run into anyone we knew. My phone buzzed with a text from my employee, Rashad. "Boss, you left your toolbox in the shop. Want me to drop it by tomorrow?" "No rush," I typed back. "I'll grab it in the morning. Thanks." Rashad was 25, streetwise, and had an uncanny ability to read people. He'd been working for me for 3 years, ever since he'd dropped out of community college to help support his mom. The kid was brilliant with electronics and had a natural talent for troubleshooting that couldn't be taught. The next morning, I arrived at the shop early to find Rashad already there, tinkering with a customer's gaming rig. "Morning, boss," he said without looking up. "Mrs. Patterson's computer is ready. Turns out her grandson had been using it to mine cryptocurrency. Explained why it was running slower than a government website." I laughed and grabbed my toolbox from behind the counter. "Good catch. How'd you figure that out?" "Process of elimination and a healthy dose of suspicion," he said, finally looking up. "Speaking of which, you look like someone who didn't get much sleep. Everything cool at home?" This was the thing about Rashad. He noticed everything. It was what made him great at his job, but it also meant he picked up on things I'd rather keep private. "Yeah, just thinking about some stuff," I said, settling in at my workstation. "Want to talk about it?" I'm like a priest, except I actually know what I'm talking about. I was about to brush him off when my phone buzzed. A text from Seren. "Going out with the girls tonight. Don't wait up. Love you." It was 8:30 in the morning. Who plans a night out before they've even had their second cup of coffee? I showed Rashad the text. He read it, raised an eyebrow, and handed my phone back. "Boss, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to promise not to get mad at me for saying it." "Okay. That text right there? That's not how happy wives communicate with their husbands." The uncomfortable feeling in my stomach turned into a full-blown knot. "What do you mean?" "I mean, my mom's been married to my stepdad for 12 years, and when she goes out with her friends, she tells him where they're going, what time she'll be back, and usually asks if he needs anything while she's out. She doesn't send him a text that sounds like she's informing her landlord about having guests over." I stared at my phone, reading the message again. He was right. It was cold, informational, and completely unlike Seren's usual communication style. "Maybe she was just in a hurry," I said, but even I didn't believe it. Rashad gave me a look that was equal parts sympathetic and exasperated. "Boss, you're one of the smartest people I know. You can diagnose a computer problem from 3 symptoms and fix it in under an hour. But right now, you're acting like someone who's never seen a red flag before." Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Fiona calling from school. "Dad, can you pick me up after school today? Mom said she's going to be busy getting ready for her night out, and I don't want to take the bus." "Of course, sweetheart. Everything okay?" There was a pause. "Yeah, can we talk when you pick me up? There's some stuff I think you should know." The knot in my stomach tightened. What kind of stuff? "Not over the phone, Dad, just pick me up, okay?" After I hung up, Rashad was watching me with concern. "Let me guess," he said. "Your daughter wants to have a conversation that she can't have over the phone, and your wife is suddenly making plans that don't include you. You're reading too much into this." "Am I? Boss, when's the last time your wife asked you to join her for one of these girls' nights?" I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it. Seren had been going out with Mara and Anya for months, and not once had she suggested I come along or that we make it a couples thing. "That's normal," I said finally. "Everyone needs time with their friends." "Sure, but most people also want to share their fun with the person they love. When's the last time she came home from one of these nights and told you a funny story about what happened, or showed you pictures, or seemed excited to tell you about her evening?" I thought about it. Seren always came home from her nights out quiet and tired. She'd give me a quick kiss, say it was fun but exhausting, and head straight to bed. No stories, no laughter, No details about what they'd done or where they'd gone. "You're making me paranoid," I said. "Good. Paranoid people don't get blindsided." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of routine tasks, but Rashad's words kept echoing in my head. By the time I left to pick up Fiona, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. Seren and I had been together for 18 years, married for 16. She wasn't the type to do whatever it was I was worried she might be doing. Fiona was waiting by the school's front entrance when I pulled up, her backpack slung over one shoulder and an expression on her face that reminded me uncomfortably of her mother when she was about to deliver bad news. She climbed into the passenger seat and immediately buckled her seatbelt, which was unusual. Normally, she'd spend a few minutes digging through her bag or checking her phone before remembering basic car safety. "Okay," I said, pulling away from the school. "What's going on?" "Dad, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you won't get mad at me for telling you this, and promise me you won't do anything crazy when you hear it." This was the second time today someone had asked me to promise not to get mad before they told me something. That couldn't be a good sign. "I promise." Fiona took a deep breath. "Mom's not going out with Mara and Anya tonight." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "How do you know that?" "Because Mara called the house yesterday looking for Mom, and when I told her Mom was at yoga, Mara said that was weird because they didn't have yoga on Wednesdays. Then she said something about how Mom had been busy with her new hobby and that she and Anya barely saw her anymore." I pulled into a parking lot and put the car in park. My hands were shaking slightly, and I didn't trust myself to drive while processing this information. Did Mara say anything else? She seemed kind of hurt, actually, like she felt left out of something. "Dad, I think Mom's been lying about where she goes." I sat there for a moment, staring at the steering wheel and trying to organize my thoughts. Everything Rashad had said suddenly made perfect sense. The secretive texting, the new clothes I never saw, the vague explanations about her evenings out, it all pointed to one conclusion that I desperately didn't want to face. "Dad? Are you okay?" I looked at my daughter, this brilliant, perceptive young woman who'd inherited the best parts of both her parents, and I realized she'd been trying to protect me. She'd been dropping hints for weeks, hoping I'd figure it out on my own so she wouldn't have to be the one to break my heart. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm okay. Thank you for telling me." "What are you going to do?" That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? "I'm going to find out the truth." That evening, I sat in my home office pretending to work on invoices while Seren got ready for her mysterious night out. She'd been upstairs for over an hour, and I could hear the hairdryer, the opening and closing of drawers, and the telltale sounds of someone putting significant effort into their appearance. When she finally came downstairs, I understood why it had taken so long. Seren looked stunning, and nothing like someone planning to grab dinner and drinks with her female friends. She was wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, heels that added 3 inches to her height, and makeup that belonged in a magazine. "Wow," I said, looking up from my laptop. "The girls are getting the full treatment tonight." She did a little spin, smiling brightly. "I bought this dress last week and haven't had a chance to wear it. Figured tonight was as good a time as any. Where are you guys going?" "Oh, probably that new place downtown. Anya heard good things about their cocktails." She grabbed her purse and keys from the kitchen counter. "Don't wait up. You know how these things go." Actually, I didn't know how these things went, because she'd never told me. After she left, I sat in the quiet house and weighed my options. I could confront her directly, but if I was wrong, I'd damage our relationship over nothing more than suspicion and paranoia. I could hire a private investigator, but that felt like a massive escalation that would be hard to walk back from. Or I could use the skills I'd developed over 15 years in IT to find out the truth myself. I went upstairs to our bedroom and opened Seren's laptop. She'd never been particularly security conscious, and her password was still Fiona 2008. the year our daughter was born. Within minutes, I had access to her email, her social media accounts, and her cloud storage. What I found there made my stomach drop to somewhere around my ankles. Seren had been using a separate email account that I'd never known about. The inbox was full of messages from someone named Zane Morrison, and the subject lines alone told a story I didn't want to read. Can't wait to see you tonight. Last weekend was incredible. My place or yours? With hands that weren't quite steady, I opened the most recent message, sent just 2 hours ago. Babe, I've got champagne chilling and that playlist you like ready to go. Wear the black dress, you know the one. Can't wait to continue our conversation about your future. Love you. I stared at the screen, reading the message 3 times before the words fully sank in. My wife of 16 years was having an affair, and they were talking about her future, a future that apparently didn't include me. I scrolled through more emails, each one a small knife twist. Photos of Seren in lingerie I'd never seen, messages about hotel rooms and weekend getaways, discussions about how Colby doesn't understand you the way I do. The worst part wasn't even the affair itself. It was how long it had been going on. Based on the timestamps, Seren and this Zane person had been involved for at least 6 months. 6 months of lies, fake yoga sessions, and elaborate deceptions. I was about to close the laptop when I noticed something else, a folder labeled Legal Documents. Inside were divorce papers already filled out and correspondence with a lawyer I'd never heard of. Seren wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to leave me, and she'd been preparing for months. I sat back in the desk chair, trying to process the magnitude of what I'd discovered. My entire life had been a carefully orchestrated lie, and I'd been too trusting or too naive to see it. My phone buzzed with a text from Rashad. How'd the talk with your daughter go? Instead of texting back, I called him. Boss, you sound weird. What's up? Can you come over? I need someone to talk to, and Fiona's at her friend's house doing homework. On my way. 20 minutes later, Rashad was sitting in my kitchen, listening to me explain what I'd found. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Damn, boss. I'm sorry, that's rough. The thing is, I don't know what to do now. Do I confront her? Do I talk to a lawyer first? Do I pretend I don't know and try to gather more evidence? Rashad leaned back in his chair. What do you want to do? I want to understand how I missed this for 6 months. I want to know who this Zane guy is and why my wife thinks he's better than me. And I want to know what she's planning to do about our daughter. Those are all good questions, but first, you need to protect yourself. If she's been talking to lawyers, you need to talk to one too. He was right. I needed legal advice before I did anything else. But boss, can I make a suggestion? What? Before you do anything official, maybe we should find out a little more about this Zane character. Know your enemy and all that. I raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? I'm thinking you're a computer expert with access to all kinds of information, and I'm a guy who knows how to find things out about people. Between the two of us, we could probably learn everything there is to know about this dude. It was a tempting idea. Knowledge was power, and right now, I felt powerless. What kind of things? Well, for starters, we could find out where he works, where he lives, what kind of car he drives. We could check his social media, see if he's got a history of this kind of thing. Maybe find out if he's married or has a girlfriend he's cheating on too. I considered it. It wasn't exactly ethical, but then again, neither was having a 6-month affair while planning to divorce your husband without telling him. Okay, I said. But we do this smart. No breaking any laws, no hacking into anything we don't have legitimate access to. Just good old-fashioned research. Rashad grinned. Boss, you're about to learn why I dropped out of college. I'm really, really good at finding things out about people. We spent the next 2 hours conducting what Rashad called open-source intelligence gathering. Within the first hour, we'd found Zane Morrison's Facebook profile, his LinkedIn page, his address, and his employment history. Zane was 39, worked as a sales manager at a car dealership, and lived in a downtown apartment complex that was definitely above his apparent pay grade. His social media was full of photos of expensive dinners, weekend trips, and what appeared to be a lifestyle funded by someone other than himself. "This guy's a player," Rashad said, scrolling through Instagram photos. "Look at this, different woman in half these pictures, and none of them are your wife." He was right. Zane's social media painted a picture of someone who enjoyed the company of multiple women, expensive restaurants, and activities that required more money than a car salesman typically made. "Wait," I said, leaning closer to the laptop screen. "Go back to that picture from last month." Rashad scrolled back to a photo of Zane at what appeared to be an upscale restaurant. In the background, barely visible, was a woman with blonde hair who looked suspiciously like Seren. "Can you enhance that?" "I'm not CSI, boss, but I can try." After some digital manipulation, we had a clearer image. It was definitely Seren, and she was wearing the earrings I'd given her for our anniversary last year. "So this has been going on for at least a month," I said. "Probably longer. People don't usually post pictures of their affairs on social media right away." We continued digging, and what we found painted an increasingly clear picture. Zane Morrison was a serial cheater who seemed to specialize in targeting married women. His pattern was consistent: expensive dates, promises of a better life, and then moving on when things got complicated. The problem was, Seren didn't seem to know about the pattern. Based on her emails, she thought she was his only romantic interest. "Boss," Rashad said around midnight, "I think your wife is about to get played harder than a piano in a honky-tonk bar." "What do you mean?" "I mean, this guy has done this before. Look at these patterns. He targets women who are financially stable, wines and dines them, gets them to pay for things, and then disappears when they start talking about leaving their husbands." I stared at the evidence we'd compiled. Credit card statements showed that Seren had been paying for most of their expensive dates. Hotel reservations were in her name. Even the champagne Zane had mentioned in his email, Seren had bought it. "She's financing her own affair," I said. "Looks like it. And based on his history, I'd bet money that he's going to disappear the minute she actually files for divorce." It was almost funny, in a tragic way. Seren was planning to leave me for a man who was using her for money and would probably dump her the moment she was no longer married to someone else. "So what do I do with this information?" Rashad closed the laptop and looked at me seriously. "That depends on what kind of man you want to be. You could use this to try to save your marriage, show Seren what this guy really is and hope she comes to her senses. Or you could use it to protect yourself in the divorce proceedings. What would you do?" "Honestly, I'd be tempted to let her find out the hard way what kind of guy she's throwing her marriage away for. But that's just me being petty. You're a better person than I am." I wasn't so sure about that. Sitting there at midnight, surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal, I was feeling distinctly less charitable than usual. My phone buzzed with a text from Seren. "Having such a great time. Don't wait up. Love you." The casual cruelty of it, texting me about her great time while she was presumably with another man, was breathtaking. I showed the text to Rashad, who just shook his head. "Boss, I think you need to accept that your marriage is over. The question now is whether you're going to let yourself get steamrolled in the divorce, or whether you're going to fight for what's yours." He was right. This wasn't about saving my marriage anymore. It was about protecting my daughter and myself from whatever Seren and her lawyer had planned. "Tomorrow," I said. "I'm calling a lawyer." "Good. And boss?" "Yeah?" "Don't tell her you know. Not yet. Let her think she's still in control while you figure out your next move." It was good advice. Seren had been planning this for months while I remained oblivious. It was time for me to do some planning of my own. As Rashad left, he paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I think she's making a huge mistake. You're one of the good ones." After he left, I sat in my kitchen and tried to figure out how my life had gone so wrong so quickly. This morning, I'd been a happily married man with minor concerns about my wife's behavior. Tonight, I was planning a divorce strategy and wondering how I'd missed 6 months of lies. Seren came home at 2:47 a.m. I heard her trying to be quiet as she came upstairs, heard the shower running, heard her slip into bed beside me. She smelled like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I lay there in the dark, pretending to sleep, and tried to figure out what kind of man I wanted to be when this was all over. The next morning, Seren was unusually cheerful at breakfast. She hummed while making coffee, smiled when she handed me my mug, and seemed to glow with the kind of happiness that comes from having something wonderful to look forward to. It was nauseating. "You seem to be in a good mood," I observed, keeping my voice neutral. "The girls and I had such a great time last night. Sometimes you just need to remember what it feels like to be young and free, you know?" Young and free. The words hit like a slap. Apparently, being married to me was the opposite of young and free. "I'm glad you had fun," I managed. Fiona came downstairs for breakfast, took one look at her mother's radiant expression, and shot me a look that said, "I told you so," more clearly than words ever could. After Seren left for work, I called the law office that had been recommended to me by a customer whose divorce had gone smoothly. I was able to get an appointment for that afternoon with a lawyer named Patricia Chen. "Dad," Fiona said as I drove her to school, "Mom seems really happy today." "I noticed. Are you going to do something about, you know?" I glanced at my daughter in the rearview mirror. She was trying to look casual, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "I'm going to handle it, sweetheart. Don't worry about the adult stuff, okay? But I do worry. What if she tries to take me with her when she... Hey." I pulled over and turned to face her. "Whatever happens between your mom and me, you're going to be okay. I promise." She nodded, but I could see she wasn't entirely convinced. Patricia Chen's office was in a downtown building that screamed, "expensive lawyer." The waiting room had leather furniture, abstract art, and magazines that were actually current. I was starting to worry about what this was going to cost when a woman in her 50s emerged from an inner office. "Mr. Varron? I'm Patricia Chen. Please come in." Her office was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk, and windows overlooking the city. She gestured for me to sit in one of the chairs across from her desk. "So, what can I do for you?" I explained the situation as objectively as I could, sticking to facts and avoiding emotional commentary. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Do you have evidence of the affair?" "Email correspondence, credit card statements showing hotel charges and photographs." "Good. How long have you known?" "I found out last night." She raised an eyebrow. "And you haven't confronted your wife?" "No, a friend advised me to talk to a lawyer first." "Smart friend. Mr. Varron, I'm going to be direct with you. Based on what you've told me, your wife is planning to file for divorce, and she's been preparing for months. She has a significant head start." My stomach sank. What does that mean? It means she's had time to move assets, gather evidence that favors her position, and build a narrative about why the marriage failed. You're playing catch-up. So what do I do? First, we need to preserve evidence. Everything you found last night needs to be documented and saved in multiple locations. Second, we need to get a complete picture of your financial situation. All accounts, assets, debts, everything. Third, we need to think about custody arrangements for your daughter. The mention of custody made my chest tighten. Seren wouldn't try to keep Fiona from me, would she? "Mr. Varron, people do things during divorce proceedings that they would never consider under normal circumstances. We need to be prepared for every possibility." She walked me through the divorce process, explained my rights, and outlined a strategy for protecting my interests. By the time I left her office, I had a clear understanding of what I was facing and a plan for moving forward. I also had a retainer agreement that was going to cost me $10,000 up front. That evening, while Seren was upstairs taking one of her increasingly frequent long showers, I sat down with Fiona to have a conversation I'd been dreading. "Sweetheart, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you react, okay?" She looked up from her homework, immediately alert. "Okay. Your mom and I are probably going to get divorced." Fiona's expression didn't change, which told me she'd been expecting this. Because of her boyfriend? The casual way she said it almost made me laugh. "You know about him?" "Dad, I'm 15, not 5. Mom's been acting weird for months, and she's terrible at hiding things. Plus, she's been getting texts at weird hours and smiling at her phone like an idiot." "How do you feel about it?" Fiona shrugged. "Honestly, I'm kind of relieved. You guys haven't seemed happy for a while, and at least now I know why. The thing is, there might be some complications. Your mom might want you to live with her, and I might want you to live with me. Can I choose?" "Legally, yes. At your age, the court will consider your preference." "Then I choose you." The certainty in her voice was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. "You don't want to think about it?" "Dad, Mom's been lying to both of us for months. She's planning to leave you for some guy she barely knows, and she's been pretending everything is fine while she destroys our family. Why would I want to live with someone like that?" I was quiet for a moment, struck by how mature and perceptive my daughter had become. "There's something else," I said. "I need you to promise me that you won't tell your mom that we had this conversation. At least not yet." "Why?" "Because I'm still gathering information, and I need to understand the full situation before I make any moves." Fiona nodded. "I can do that. But Dad..." "Yeah?" "Whatever you're planning, I hope you make her pay for what she's done to us." The venom in her voice surprised me. Fiona had always been close to her mother, and I hadn't realized how much Seren's behavior had affected her. "I'm not planning anything vindictive, sweetheart. I just want to protect us. Sometimes protecting yourself means making sure the person who hurt you can't do it again." That night, after Seren had gone to bed, I sat in my office and continued my research into Zane Morrison's background. What I found was even more disturbing than what Rashad and I had discovered the night before. Zane had a pattern, and Seren wasn't his first married target. Over the past 5 years, he'd been involved with at least 3 other married women. In each case, the pattern was the same: an intense affair, promises of a better life, and then a sudden disappearance once the woman had left her husband. One of his previous targets, a woman named Jennifer Walsh, had posted about her experience on a divorce support forum. She'd left her husband for Zane, only to discover that he'd been seeing 2 other women the entire time. By the time she realized what was happening, she'd lost her marriage, her financial security, and her self-respect. I screenshot everything and added it to the growing file of evidence I was building. My phone buzzed with a text from Seren. "Working late tomorrow night. Don't wait up." I stared at the message, wondering if she even realized how transparent she'd become, or maybe she just didn't care anymore. I was about to put my phone away when it buzzed again, this time with a text from an unknown number. "Is this Colby Varron?" "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Jennifer Walsh. I think we need to talk about Zane Morrison." I sat up straight. Jennifer Walsh, the woman from the divorce forum. "How did you get my number?" "I've been keeping an eye on Zane's social media. I saw pictures of him with a woman who looks like she might be married, and I did some digging. I found your wife's Facebook page, and from there it was easy to find your business information. I wasn't sure whether to be impressed or concerned by her detective work." "Why do you want to talk?" "Because I don't want what happened to me to happen to another family. Can we meet somewhere? I have things to tell you about Zane that you need to know." We arranged to meet the next evening at a coffee shop downtown. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office and tried to process this new development. Jennifer Walsh had reached out to me, a complete stranger, because she wanted to warn me about what Zane Morrison was capable of. That level of concern suggested that whatever had happened to her was worse than just a simple affair. I was beginning to realize that Seren's betrayal might be just the beginning of a much larger problem. Jennifer Walsh was not what I'd expected. She was probably in her early 40s, professionally dressed, and carried herself with the kind of confidence that comes from surviving something terrible and coming out stronger on the other side. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, as we settled into a corner booth at the coffee shop. "I know this is weird, but I couldn't just sit back and watch another family go through what mine did." "Tell me about Zane." Jennifer took a sip of her coffee and seemed to gather her thoughts. "How much do you know about him?" "I know he's having an affair with my wife, and I know he has a pattern of targeting married women. That's just the surface. Zane doesn't just have affairs, he destroys families for profit." I leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "He targets women who are financially stable but emotionally vulnerable. He makes them feel special, understood, appreciated, all the things their husbands supposedly don't do. Then he starts talking about their future together, how much better their life could be if they just had the courage to leave their marriage." This sounded exactly like what I'd seen in Seren's emails. "But here's the thing," Jennifer continued. "He doesn't want them to leave their husbands. He wants them to think about leaving, to plan for it, to make financial preparations for it. Because that's when they start giving him money. Money for what? Everything. He needs help with rent because he's saving up for their future apartment. He needs a loan to fix his car because he wants to be reliable for their relationship. He has a business opportunity that could set them up for life, but he needs an investor." My stomach was starting to churn. How much money are we talking about? In my case, $47,000 over 8 months. I felt like I'd been hit with a hammer. 47,000? Credit cards, savings account withdrawals, even a loan against my 401k. He always had a reason, and he always promised to pay it back once we were together. And then, the day after I told my husband I wanted a divorce, Zane disappeared. Changed his phone number, moved out of his apartment, deleted all his social media accounts. Gone. I sat back in my chair, trying to process what she was telling me. "Did you go to the police?" "Of course. But technically, I'd given him the money voluntarily. There were no forged signatures, no stolen credit cards. Just a woman who'd made incredibly stupid financial decisions for a man who'd lied to her." "What happened to your marriage?" Jennifer's expression darkened. "My husband filed for divorce the day after I told him about Zane. Can't say I blame him. I'd been lying to him for months. I'd drained our savings, and I'd been planning to leave him for another man. The fact that the other man was a con artist didn't exactly make it better. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry for me. Be smart for yourself. Has your wife been giving Zane money?" I thought about Seren's credit card statements, the hotel charges in her name, the expensive dinners she'd been paying for. "Some. Not as much as you're talking about, but some. It starts small. Trust me on this. If you don't stop it now, it's going to get much worse." Jennifer reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "I've been tracking Zane for 2 years, trying to build a case that might actually stick. I've found 3 other women who went through the same thing I did." She handed me the folder. Inside were printed emails, bank statements, and photographs documenting Zane's pattern of behavior with multiple women. "This is incredible," I said, flipping through the evidence. "Why haven't you taken this to the police?" "Because none of these women will cooperate with an investigation. They're embarrassed, they're trying to rebuild their lives, and they don't want their mistakes made public. But this shows a clear pattern of fraud. It shows a pattern of manipulation and poor judgment. The law doesn't protect people from making bad decisions, even when those decisions are based on lies." I studied the documents more carefully. Jennifer was right. Zane was incredibly careful about how he operated. He never outright asked for money, he just created situations where the women felt compelled to offer it. He never made promises in writing. Everything was verbal or implied. So, what can I do? You can save your wife from making the same mistakes we did. And you can protect yourself from the financial and emotional devastation that's coming if you don't act. How? Jennifer leaned forward. First, monitor your accounts. All of them. If Seren has access to joint credit cards or savings accounts, she's probably already started using them. Second, document everything. Every lie, every unexplained expense, every suspicious behavior. Third, get ahead of this legally. Don't wait for her to file for divorce. You file first. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Colby, can I call you Colby? You seem like a good man. You love your wife, you want to believe the best about her, and you're hoping this is all just a phase that will pass. I understand that because I was married to a man just like you. She paused, and I could see the pain in her eyes. But here's what you need to understand. Your wife isn't just having an affair. She's being systematically manipulated by a man who makes his living destroying marriages. Every day you wait is another day she gets deeper into his web, and another day you lose ground in protecting yourself and your daughter. My daughter already knows what's happening. Smart kid. Listen to her. Kids see things adults miss because they're not emotionally invested in maintaining the illusion that everything is okay. We talked for another hour, with Jennifer giving me detailed advice about protecting my assets, documenting Seren's behavior, and preparing for the divorce proceedings that were almost certainly coming. When we finally parted ways, I felt like I had a much clearer understanding of what I was dealing with, and it was worse than I'd imagined. That night, I went through our financial records with a fine-tooth comb. What I found confirmed Jennifer's warnings. Over the past 3 months, Seren had withdrawn nearly $8,000 in cash from our savings account. When I'd asked about it, she'd said it was for household expenses and her yoga classes. There were also credit card charges I hadn't noticed before, expensive dinners, hotel rooms, and purchases at stores I'd never heard of. When I added it all up, Seren had spent almost $15,000 on her affair. $15,000 of our money, our daughter's college fund, our future security, all spent on a man who was planning to disappear the moment things got complicated. I was still processing this information when my phone buzzed with a text from Seren. Going to be late again tomorrow night, work stuff, love you. The casual cruelty of it, the exclamation point, the love you, the complete disregard for my feelings, was staggering. I was about to put my phone away when it buzzed again, this time with a message from an unknown number. Your wife is beautiful. Shame she's married to such a boring guy. Zane Morrison had just texted me directly. I stared at the message, reading it over and over again. The arrogance of it was breathtaking. He was taunting me, confident that I was too weak or too naive to do anything about it. He was wrong. I screenshot the message and added it to my evidence file. Then I forwarded it to Jennifer Walsh with a note. Is this typical behavior for him? She responded within minutes. Yes. He likes to provoke the husbands. Makes him feel powerful. Don't respond. That's what he wants. But I was tempted to respond. I was tempted to tell Zane Morrison exactly what I thought of him and what he was doing to my family. Instead, I called Patricia Chen. Mr. Varron, it's rather late. I know, and I apologize. But something's happened, and I think I need to accelerate our timeline. I told her about Jennifer Walsh, about Zane's pattern of behavior, and about the text message I'd just received. Mr. Varron, I think it's time we had a serious conversation about your options. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Yes. Good. And Mr. Varron? Yes? Don't do anything stupid. I know you're angry, but we need to handle this strategically. After I hung up, I sat in my office and tried to figure out how my life had become so complicated so quickly. A week ago, my biggest concern had been whether to upgrade the computers in my shop. Now I was dealing with adultery, financial fraud, and a con artist who was systematically destroying my family. But as I sat there in the quiet, I realized something important. I wasn't the same man I'd been a week ago. The naive, trusting husband who'd believed his wife's lies about yoga classes and girls' nights out was gone. In his place was someone harder, smarter, and much less inclined to be anyone's victim. Zane Morrison had made a mistake when he'd sent me that text. He'd shown me that this wasn't just about my wife's infidelity. It was about power, control, and humiliation. He wanted to destroy my family and make me feel powerless while he did it. But I had advantages he didn't know about. A brilliant daughter who was on my side, a loyal employee who was willing to help, a lawyer who knew how to fight, and evidence of his criminal pattern of behavior. Most importantly, I had something Zane Morrison didn't expect: the righteous anger of a good man who'd been pushed too far. It was time to push back. The next morning, Patricia Chen's expression was grim as she reviewed the evidence I'd brought her: Jennifer Walsh's documentation, the financial records showing Seren's spending, and the screenshot of Zane's taunting text message. "Mr. Varron, this changes everything. Based on this pattern of behavior, we're not just dealing with adultery, we're potentially dealing with fraud." "What do you mean?" "If Mr. Morrison is systematically targeting married women for financial gain, and if your wife is giving him money based on false promises, there may be criminal charges that can be filed." My heart started beating faster. Criminal charges? Fraud, obtaining money under false pretenses, possibly even racketeering if we can prove this is an ongoing criminal enterprise. The text message he sent you could be considered harassment or intimidation. So what do we do? First, we file for divorce immediately. I want to get ahead of whatever your wife and her lawyer are planning. Second, we contact law enforcement. This Jennifer Walsh has done excellent investigative work, and combined with your evidence, we might have enough for the police to take action. And third, Patricia smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Third, we make sure Mr. Morrison understands that he's picked the wrong family to mess with. 2 hours later, I walked out of Patricia's office with divorce papers that would be served to Seren that afternoon, a referral to a detective who specialized in financial crimes, and a strategy for protecting my assets and my daughter. I also had something I hadn't expected: hope. For the first time since I'd discovered Seren's affair, I felt like I was taking control of the situation instead of just reacting to it. My phone rang as I was driving back to the shop. It was Rashad. "Boss, where are you? We've got a situation here." "What kind of situation?" "The kind where your wife's boyfriend is standing in our parking lot taking pictures of your truck." I felt a surge of adrenaline. "I'll be there in 5 minutes." When I pulled into the shop's parking lot, Zane Morrison was leaning against a silver BMW, scrolling through his phone. He was exactly what I'd expected based on his social media photos: tall, conventionally handsome, and wearing clothes that cost more than most people made in a week. He looked up as I parked, and his smile was pure predator. "Colby Varron, I presume?" I got out of my truck and walked toward him, very conscious of the fact that Rashad was watching from the shop's doorway. "You're trespassing on private property." "Relax, buddy. I just wanted to meet the man who's been making Seren so unhappy." The casual use of my wife's name, the dismissive tone, the complete lack of shame, it all combined to make me angrier than I'd ever been in my life. "You need to leave. Now." Zane chuckled. "Or what? You'll call the police?" "Go ahead. I'm not doing anything illegal." "Actually, you are. Harassment, intimidation, and trespassing. Plus, I've got some very interesting information about your financial activities that I think law enforcement would love to hear about." For the first time, Zane's confident expression faltered slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Jennifer Walsh sends her regards, by the way, along with Rachel Martinez, Susan Chen, and the other women you've scammed over the past few years." Now Zane's smile was completely gone. "You don't know what you're messing with, Colby." "Actually, I think I do. You're a con artist who targets married women, manipulates them into leaving their husbands, and steals their money in the process. The only thing I don't understand is why you thought my family would be an easy target." Zane stepped closer, and I could smell expensive cologne mixed with something that might have been fear. "Your wife came to me, buddy. I didn't have to manipulate anyone. She was desperate to get away from her boring, pathetic excuse for a husband." The words hit like physical blows, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Is that what you tell yourself? That these women come to you willingly? That you're not a predator who destroys families for money? I give them what their husbands can't: excitement, passion, a chance to feel alive again. You give them lies and debt and broken families. But that's okay, because it's all about to catch up with you." Zane's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've filed for divorce, I've documented everything you've done, and I've been in contact with your other victims. It means your little scam is about to become very public and very expensive." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshot of his text from the night before. "Harassment via electronic communication. That's a misdemeanor in this state. Want to guess what happens when the police start investigating you and find out about the fraud?" Zane stared at the phone, and I could see him calculating his options. "Seren won't cooperate with any investigation. She loves me." "Maybe. But Jennifer Walsh will cooperate. So will the other women, now that they know they're not alone. And so will I. You don't have anything on me. I have financial records showing a pattern of fraud. I have testimony from multiple victims. I have evidence of your harassment and intimidation. And I have something else you don't know about." "What?" I smiled, and I made sure it was just as unpleasant as his had been. "I have a very smart lawyer who specializes in making life difficult for people like you." Zane stood there for a moment, clearly trying to figure out if I was serious. Then he seemed to come to a decision. "This isn't over, Colby." "You're right. It's not over. It's just getting started." He got into his BMW and drove away, but not before rolling down his window and shouting something that I chose not to hear. Rashad walked over as the BMW disappeared around the corner. "Boss, that was either really smart or really stupid. Probably both, but I'm tired of being the victim in this situation. So what happens now? Now we see if he's smart enough to cut his losses and disappear, or if he's going to try to escalate this." My phone buzzed with a text from Seren. "We need to talk. I'm coming home early." I showed the message to Rashad. "Looks like word travels fast," he said. "Looks like it's time for the conversation I've been avoiding." I drove home with my heart pounding, knowing that the next few hours would determine the course of the rest of my life. Serene's car was already in the driveway when I arrived, and I could see her silhouette in the living room window. When I walked into the house, she was sitting on the couch with her hands folded in her lap, looking like someone who'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. "Colby, we need to talk." "Yes, we do." I sat down across from her, noting the distance she maintained and the way she couldn't quite meet my eyes. "Zane told me you confronted him today." "I did. He said you threatened him." "I informed him that his harassment and fraud were about to become legal problems. If he considers that a threat, that's his issue." Seren's eyes flashed with anger. "Fraud? What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the $15,000 you've spent on your affair. I'm talking about the pattern of behavior that shows he's done this to other women. I'm talking about the lies you've been telling me for months. I don't know what you think you know, but Seren, stop. Just stop." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots of her emails with Zane. "I know about the affair. I know about the divorce papers you've already prepared. I know about the money you've been giving him. I know everything." She stared at the phone, and I watched the color drain from her face. "How did you—" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is what happens next." "Colby, I can explain—" "No, you can't. There's no explanation for 6 months of lies. There's no explanation for planning to destroy our family while pretending everything was fine. There's no explanation for stealing money from our daughter's college fund to pay for your affair." Tears started running down her cheeks, but I felt no sympathy for her. "I never meant for this to happen." "But it did happen. And now you need to decide what you're going to do about it." "What do you mean?" "I mean you have two choices. You can end this affair, cut all contact with Zane Morrison, and we can try to work through this together. Or you can continue with whatever you've been planning and I'll see you in court." Seren was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her struggling with the decision. Finally, she looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, determined, and completely unfamiliar. "I can't do this anymore, Colby. I can't pretend to be happy in a marriage that makes me feel invisible." "So you choose him." "I choose myself. For the first time in 16 years, I'm choosing what makes me happy." I nodded, surprised by how calm I felt. "Okay. Then you should know that divorce papers will be served to you tomorrow morning. You should also know that I've documented everything, including your financial activities and Zane's pattern of fraud." "You can't prove—" "Seren, I'm an IT specialist. I can prove everything." She stared at me for a moment, and I could see her trying to figure out if I was bluffing. "I want custody of Fiona." "That's not going to happen." "She's my daughter, too. She's a 15-year-old girl who knows exactly what you've been doing and how you've been lying to our family. Ask her where she wants to live." As if on cue, Fiona's voice came from the stairway. "I want to live with Dad." We both turned to see our daughter standing on the stairs, still in her school clothes, with an expression that was equal parts hurt and anger. "Fiona, sweetheart," Seren started. "Don't. Just don't, Mom. I heard everything, and I'm not interested in your explanations." Seren looked between Fiona and me, and I could see the moment she realized that she'd lost more than just her marriage. "I'll be staying at Mara's house tonight," she said finally. "We can figure out the details later." After she left, Fiona and I sat in the quiet house and tried to process what had just happened. "Are you okay, Dad?" "I will be. Are you?" "Yeah. I'm actually kind of relieved. At least now we don't have to pretend anymore." That night, as I lay in bed alone for the first time in 16 years, I realized that Fiona was right. The pretending was over, and whatever came next, at least it would be honest. My phone buzzed with one final message from Zane. "This isn't over." I deleted the message without responding. As far as I was concerned, it was over. Seren had made her choice, and now she would have to live with the consequences. But I was wrong about it being over. The real confrontation was just beginning. 3 days after Seren moved out, I was working late at the shop when Detective Maria Santos called. "Mr. Varron, I've reviewed the evidence you provided, and I think we have enough to move forward with charges against Zane Morrison." My heart started racing. "What kind of charges?" "Fraud, obtaining money under false pretenses, and harassment. Jennifer Walsh and 2 other victims have agreed to cooperate with the investigation. Combined with your wife's financial records, we have a strong case." "What happens next?" "We execute a warrant tomorrow morning. I wanted to give you a heads up because there's a chance Mr. Morrison will try to contact you or your family before we pick him up." "Understood. Thank you, Detective." After I hung up, I called Patricia Chen to update her on the situation. "This is excellent news, Colby. Criminal charges will significantly strengthen our position in the divorce proceedings." "How so?" "If Seren knowingly participated in fraudulent activities, she could be charged as an accomplice. That would give us substantial leverage in negotiations." The next morning, I was having coffee with Fiona before school when my phone rang. It was Seren, and she was crying. "Colby, I need your help." "What's wrong?" "Zane's been arrested. The police came to his apartment this morning with a warrant. They're saying he's a fraud, that he's done this to other women. They want to talk to me." I felt a surge of satisfaction, but I kept my voice neutral. "What do you want me to do about it?" "I think I might need a lawyer. They're saying I could be charged as an accomplice." "Then you should get a lawyer." "Colby, please. I know I've made mistakes, But I never knew about any fraud. I thought he loved me. The pain in her voice was real, and despite everything she'd done, I felt a moment of sympathy for her. Seren, I can't help you with this. You made your choices, and now you have to deal with the consequences. But what if they charge me? What happens to Fiona? Fiona will be fine. She'll be with me. Colby, I'm scared. You should be. You've been involved with a criminal for 6 months. You've given him money that wasn't yours to give. You've lied to everyone who cares about you. Being scared is appropriate. There was a long silence, and then Seren's voice became small and broken. I've ruined everything, haven't I? Yes, you have. After I hung up, Fiona looked at me with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Was that Mom? Yes. Her boyfriend was arrested this morning. Good. What's going to happen to her? I don't know. That depends on what the police find and whether she cooperated with his fraud. Do you think she did? I considered the question. Based on the financial records, Seren had been giving Zane money for months. Whether she knew it was part of a larger scam was unclear, but her willingness to drain our savings for a man she'd known for 6 months suggested either criminal intent or breathtaking naivety. I think she made very poor decisions, and now she has to face the consequences. That afternoon, Detective Santos called with an update. We've arrested Morrison, and he's been charged with fraud, harassment, and obtaining money under false pretenses. We found evidence of at least 7 victims over the past 3 years, with total losses exceeding $200,000. 200,000? He was very good at what he did. We also found evidence that he was planning to disappear within the next week. Your confrontation with him probably prevented him from victimizing more women. What about my wife? We'd like to interview her, but she's retained a lawyer and isn't cooperating. Based on the evidence we have, she was a victim as much as an accomplice. Whether we charge her will depend on what else we find. That evening, Patricia Chen called with news about the divorce proceedings. Seren's lawyer wants to negotiate. Apparently, the criminal investigation has made them very eager to settle quickly and quietly. What are they offering? Joint custody of Fiona, an even split of assets, and no alimony claims. And what are we countering with? Full custody of Fiona, recovery of the money she spent on the affair, and a guarantee that she won't make any claims on your business or retirement accounts. Will they accept that? Given that she's potentially facing criminal charges, I think they'll be very motivated to settle. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Patricia's conference room across from Seren and her lawyer. Seren looked terrible, pale, thin, and wearing clothes that hung loosely on her frame. The confident, radiant woman who'd been planning to leave me for a con artist was gone, replaced by someone who looked broken and defeated. Mr. Varron, her lawyer began, my client is prepared to accept your terms with one modification. What modification? She wants supervised visitation with Fiona, not no contact. I looked at Seren, who was staring at the table and refusing to meet my eyes. What does Fiona want? She's agreed to see her mother once a month, supervised by a neutral third party. It was more generous than I'd expected, but I could see that Fiona was trying to maintain some relationship with her mother, despite everything that had happened. Acceptable. We signed the papers that afternoon. 16 years of marriage ended with signatures on legal documents and a handshake between lawyers. As we left the conference room, Seren finally looked at me directly. Colby, I'm sorry for everything. I know you are. Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me? I considered the question. Seren had destroyed our marriage, lied to our daughter, and stolen money from our family to give to a criminal. She'd planned to leave me without warning and had only shown remorse when she'd been caught. I don't know, I said finally, but I hope someday you'll be able to forgive yourself. That evening, Fiona and I ordered pizza and sat in our quiet house, trying to figure out what our new normal would look like. Dad, are you happy? I'm relieved. I think happiness will come later. I'm proud of you, you know. Why? Because you didn't let them get away with it. You fought for us. 3 months later, Zane Morrison was sentenced to 4 years in prison for fraud and related charges. Seren was charged as an accomplice, but received probation and community service in exchange for cooperating with the investigation and testifying against Zane. I received a check for $8,000, partial restitution for the money Seren had given to Zane. It wasn't everything we'd lost, but it was something. Jennifer Walsh called me the day after Zane's sentencing. I wanted to thank you, she said, because you were willing to fight. 4 other families got justice. We all deserved better. Yes, we did, but not everyone gets it. You made sure we did. As I hung up, I realized that Jennifer was right. I could have chosen to be a victim, to accept what had happened and try to move on quietly. Instead, I'd chosen to fight for my family and for justice. It had cost me my marriage, but it had saved my daughter and my self-respect. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was closing up the shop when my phone buzzed with a text from Seren. My ex wants us to divorce, and I agreed. I stared at the message, confused. We were already divorced. Then I realized what had happened. Seren had sent me a text meant for someone else, probably her therapist or a friend, about her relationship with Zane. I screenshot the message and was about to delete it when I noticed something odd about the metadata. The message had been sent from a phone number I didn't recognize, and the timestamp showed it had been sent from a location 3 states away. I forwarded the message to Detective Santos with a note. Is Zane Morrison supposed to be in prison? She called me back within an hour. Mr. Varron, we have a problem. Morrison was released on early parole 2 weeks ago, and he's violated the terms of his release by leaving the state. And he's been in contact with my ex-wife? It appears so. We're issuing a warrant for his arrest, and we're going to need to interview Seren again. I hung up and stared at my phone, realizing that my nightmare wasn't over. It was starting all over again. But this time, I was ready for it. I called Patricia Chen, updated her on the situation, and then called Fiona to warn her that Zane was out of prison and potentially dangerous. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I smiled. Zane Morrison had made the same mistake twice. He'd underestimated me. The first time, it had cost him 4 years in prison. This time, it was going to cost him much more. Because I wasn't the same naive, trusting man I'd been a year ago. I was someone who'd learned how to fight, how to win, and how to protect the people I loved. And I was very good at it. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from an unknown number. See you soon, Colby. I screenshot the message, forwarded it to Detective Santos, and then typed a reply. I'll be waiting. This time, I was ready for whatever Zane Morrison thought he could do to my family. And this time, he wasn't going to win.